Thank you for joining us for the June GATE Equity webinar, where we explore topics related to equity and graduation success. This webinar is being recorded and the video will be posted with captions later this month, so stay tuned for those recordings. The PowerPoint is posted under today's date in the archive section of the GATE Equity webinar page on OSPI's website, so if you want to follow along, you can do that there. Also, we'd like to ask that you direct the questions you want us to answer to the Q&A and not the chat, so that we can more easily respond to you and make sure that we're answering those questions. Today's topic is planning for equity with data, and this topic was chosen because data is a road to equity. So by looking at the numbers, you have a clear understanding of who's struggling, and you get an opportunity to help. This work closes gaps, and at OSPI, we think it is important enough to bring you a data tool to help you with this ongoing work. So I'm Kathy Anderson, OSPI Graduation Equity Program Supervisor. I'm joined today by Susan Canaga, Office of System and School Improvement Director of Data, who's been heavily involved in the creation of the Washington School Improvement Framework, the WSIF. I also have today Todd Johnson, ESD 113's Program Director for the Center for Research and Data Analysis from ESD 113, and Joanne Johnson, Curriculum Coordinator, Teaching and Learning at ESD 189. Our guests today are here because they both work in partnership with OSPI to improve the use of data and examine data quality. So thank you guys for being here. Superintendent Reichdahl's K-12 vision has 3 phases, each lasting 2 years, from small improvements to a full redesign of the K-12 education system. And today we're focusing in on the use of data to close opportunity gaps. OSPI's values are guiding our work, including ensuring equity, collaboration, and service, achieving excellence through continuous improvement, and focusing on the whole child. Our values have led us to create the new redesigned report card, the WSIF, which will combine the best features of the equity analytics with the report card and the accountability data. Our new system is in transition, and when it is complete, it'll help you get the most meaningful displays of these high leverage measures. Our goals for today are to get you familiar with the parts of having an inquiry mindset, get a look at great data tool that you can use with the help of your ESD, and get some practical advice on what using the data tool looks like in real life. We'll also give you some resources to help you along the way. We're going to start off with a polling question. Which data tools do you use? Check all that apply. That's the WSIF, the report card, student information system such as Skyward, Healthy Youth Survey, or other. If you have an other, you can use the questions box to tell us what you think. Also, as we go through our presentation, feel free to use that questions box to ask our presenters things. I'm going to run that poll. And we'll just give you a couple of seconds to think about it. All right. We're going to share with you the poll results so that you can see them as well. And Susan, do you see these cool results? It's kind of amazing. So we've got most people are using their student information system, but we've also got a lot of report card users and Healthy Youth Surveys in there, and we've got some interesting other actions also.
Very good. And I saw where someone put a note that other were applications like My School Data.
Awesome. Susan is our data guru at OSPI, and she is going to tell you more about analyzing data and planning to close the gaps. So Susan, thanks so much for being here.
Great. Thank you, Kathy. And I appreciate Todd and Joanne who have joined us on this webinar. And Todd and Joanne, at any time, feel free to unmute your mics and join in, and I will be engaging you as well as we go along. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk today. We have been giving some data presentations across the state at the various ESDs to explain the Washington School Improvement Framework and to provide superintendents, principals, other district leaders, information about the data. And now we are at that point where we really want to look at the data and figure out where we are and where to go, basically the what now. And as we go through this, what we really want to do is how can we effectively use this information that we have received and for continuous school improvement and to reduce the persistent opportunity gaps. So these the tools that Kefi portrayed there on the previous screen, the performance analytics of the past and now the Washington School Improvement Framework, all have that lens of equity to help us understand better who is performing, who may need some additional supports, how we can reduce those persistent gaps. So, and ultimately, what we want to understand is what is the story that the data are telling us, and really the data are the beginning of the conversation. And so there are some tools that are available, and we're going to explore those today and also share some experiences from what Todd and Joanne and what OSPI has encountered out there to help you help this story unfold. Just to kind of start off our thinking here, that really to have an inquiry mindset is at the core of the work. And because you are all here on this webinar, I am probably talking to the choir, and but understanding and wanting to understand what is the root cause of some of the of what the data is indicating. And so there's also some other principles I would like to touch on as well that contribute to this. The idea of appreciative thinking and asset-based mental model, the habits of a system thinker, working with the ladder of inference, and then the cycle of inquiry itself, where it is a continuous cycle of understanding, action, and monitoring in order to make adjustments. So that's what we're going to tackle today. So just to dive in a bit here on this concept of appreciative thinking, and that basically from the core, working with a strength-based change, focus on what is working right, connecting to it, and inspiring action for change. And I put a link on the slide here, and Kefi, they will have access to the PowerPoint with the slide. They have access right now. So this will take you more to the work of Cooper Writer that pretty much kind of spawned this idea, and give you more information, more resources about it. But again, to have a positive core and to build upon what is going well, that innovation and empowering ourselves to do the kind of problem solving to take us to our more successful with our desired outcomes. Another focus of the work is systems thinking. So thinking about how systems work and how actions can impact the results over time. And so as we go through the cycle of inquiry, being able not just to look in a very narrow focus, but understanding how this works within the system, because if it may be, well, if we think of a bicycle, it may be well that the wheels turn, but if the steering wheel isn't working, we may not be, or the handlebars, we may not be going in the direction that we need to go. So as we work on understanding data and implementing solutions, what does that mean for our overall system, and will we get the kind of results that we intend to get? just to chat a bit about a ladder of inference and to kind of hone in on some of these ideas, that when we look at facts, we put our interpretation of that fact on there, and we may make some assumptions on what that fact means. And then we would speculate on what would happen if we did a certain action. And it may not be the action unless we study it more closely as to what the result that we want. So here's an example that, let's say we're looking at our math assessment scores and we see that that we've got some performance that we want to improve. And we may make an assumption that we don't have the right focus in our math curriculum, and that is why our students are not performing. So we might speculate, what if we revamped our math curriculum and we revamped the whole curriculum? And that may not be the true source of, in the data, what the root cause of our lack of proficiency in math may be. And so it's really, really emphasizing that we want to understand, truly understand our facts, our data, so that we don't make assumptions and speculations that aren't founded on what the true root is. So before I jump into the cycle of inquiry here, when we think about that asset-based thinking, the systems thinking, and the ladder of inference, I'd just like to touch base with Todd in 113. Todd, could you add any perspectives in how you at ESD 113 might approach these ideas?
Yeah, thanks, Susan. Yeah, I really like the appreciative inquiry and the fact that it gives us an opportunity to reframe our thinking from that of a deficit to a positive, but even more importantly, looking at the successes that we're actually creating. We have them, even in that model or the example you gave of the 70%, there's still 30% who are successful, and understanding them and the trajectory of how they actually move through our system is so important to understanding. Even in discipline, even in attendance, all of that happens upstream. So that appreciative inquiry, understanding who's successful as they come through the system, but then also asking the question, how are they successful and how do we actually replicate that with others? I love that model, and I love the systematic approach that you're sharing in regards to it. And that's what we try to do at the local level and also at the regional level with our districts, is you're doing stuff successfully. So how do we actually look at that? I know you can get funding for negative and for deficiency, but there's a lot of funding going towards success too. So understanding that and again, recognizing it, celebrating it is so, so important.
Great, thank you, Todd. Joanne, what about in your work with ESD 189 schools and districts? Maybe on the systems thinking aspect or any of the other topics here. How do you frame your work?
So the most recent use that I've made of this has been at a regional level with our early learning coalitions, and they were really looking to figure out how to come together and how to take their successes and put them into a broader palette, if you will. And so we started with a real dive into some local data, but showing it on a regional level so that everybody could see everybody's data and see those positive things going on. And then we actually honed in on the things that we wanted to focus on and did that the root cause analysis that I think you're going to talk about a little later.
Great, Thank you. And you know, I appreciate these kind of principles as we go forward with our data. We have a lot of change happening with system and school improvement, and with that change, really being able to appreciate what has worked well in the past and build upon that, and then also have that, you know, a real look at reflection on what is not working, and be able to innovate to get to where we are. So, so building on what's going well and being able to be innovative and empower ourselves to do that. So let's move on here and look at this cycle of inquiry. And this is a toolkit that has actually been on the OSPI website. Some of you may have be familiar with where it is, or you've used parts of it and didn't realize how accessible it is. So in your presentations, you will see instructions on how to get to it, or there's a direct link here. And we're going to take a look at each of these components. I think what's important about this is that this is a continuous cycle, the cycle of inquiry and action, where we do seek to understand issues, diagnose what might be the cause, put plans in action, and then establish ways to evaluate the results, and then continue to make improvements to the plan. Before we even get into the cycle of inquiry, one of the first steps that you will see in the toolkit is getting ready. And what's important to understand is, what is my capacity to analyze and use this data, and what are the data that are available to me? Even broader than that is, who should be at the table, and making sure that when some opportunities for action are established, that you have the buy-in, and that the people are at the table to help you be successful in the actions. I'm going to, let's see if I click on this. Let's see, I think I need to go out, don't I, Kefi? So I'm going to zip out here to the internet and just go directly to the toolkit to bring it up here. And so I'm going to use down over here. If you click on the Office of System and School Improvement in that left corner and click on our study icon, and you will see this toolkit right down here. And so it is large, and it is broken into different links by chapter. And so we are talking about getting ready. So I'll just open this up here, and you do get a Word document. And what is handy about this toolkit is it is a Word document. There are the Creative Commons rights to it. You can copy these and use them for your purposes. You will see tools in them. So if I open up here, it will walk you through a number of topics that talk about using data and some of the barriers for data. So if you have time where you can really study this and get yourself well equipped to work with data. I particularly like this statement here about developing a culture of inquiry, where people within a district regularly ask questions and about what all students should know and be able to know. Talking about our instructional practices, and just being inquiry minded, which is kind of what we started with here at our core of our presentation. Talks about the role of a data team. And so this is where having that discussion of who needs to be at the table as you begin to study your data to really be able to implement solutions and action plans that you develop. So as we go through this and look, you'll see throughout the tool that there are protocols listed, and that you are able to copy and use these protocols if you were going to create a presentation of these. I'm going to close this down and get back to our presentation here. And what is interesting about the cycle of inquiry is that this toolkit does not have to be accessed one by one, starting at the beginning. If you are already at a certain point, you can come in and utilize some of the activities and resources in the root cause analysis. Because of the way the links are set up, you can access these topic by topic. I do encourage you, though, if you are new to this inquiry mindedness and this cycle, there is definitely an advantage of studying the entire cycle. So getting ready is basically getting your ducks in a row, your people, understanding the status of your data and your capacity to actually do this. Do you need some more assistance in working through this data the first time? And so I'm going to touch base with Joanne and Todd now and just talk about, Joanne, I'll start with you. As you have built teams, what advice would you give for people that are starting their data journey on how to get prepared?
I would say make sure that you have the capacity and a way to hear most voices. So it's pretty important to include, if not everyone, because you can't generally include everyone, but you include all kinds of voices. So not only those early adopters that are real excited, but even some of those pessimists that you want to move along.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah. Todd, any words to the wise as we're getting started here?
I think probably the biggest thing is don't jump to conclusions. Don't already assume that you can take widget A and put it with the issue and actually have it solved. To be sure and suspend your quick attachments of interventions and answers, and build a group of folks. And it sometimes just starts with two people just talking and just kind of like mulling over stuff. There may not even be data. It may just be a story of one student, but that one student can tell a lot of stories to a lot of folks about their system. And so just creating the story and making sure that you get the people around you that also are interested and connected to the story. But I also like this document is 331 pages of material that I touch almost every 2 or 3 days, because I get questions from the field around what does my data mean, and this process helps slow me down. Rather than just giving them a quick, oh, the research says this, it allows me to actually have more conversations with folks about what they're looking for, what their dream is, what their vision is, what we could do next. And I really like page 14. There's a thing about district teams and school data teams and what their actual functions are. There's 5 functions in regards: vision, data, management, inquiry, and professional development and monitoring. And I really like couching a lot of the conversations with the teams, especially when I'm working with school districts, with their data teams in regards to what are their roles and responsibilities and activities.
Wonderful, thank you. So as we move on to identifying issues, and we talked about our data, just a bit about data and the sources. So this diagram basically shows that we have tactical uses of data and we have strategic uses of data along this spectrum, and the different roles of people that use the data. So we can see from tactical classroom use up to our strategic work with policy and the legislators and our reporting to the federal government, and drawing from these different sources, from local student information systems that feed into this larger warehouse where we are able to combine that data for a statewide view and that deeper analysis for policy going forward. Data being collected at different time frames for different reporting. And so this is a part of understanding what are the questions that I am asking that I need to understand, and what is the type of data that I need to really inform my process. And those answers, they may lie in the local information system, and they may lie in in a more data warehouse for a strategic purpose. Wanting to make sure that data and that data quality, and we'll continue to talk with you about data quality as being timely, accurate, and actionable type of data. And when we look at it as far as this cycle of when we continue to, whether we are at a tactical end or at a more strategic end, that we continue to review these data to make sure that our intentions are having the impact that we want with our plans. And we can see the various ways that data are displayed over here to help inform and communicate what we are learning as we go along. So this cycle process, and also those of you that are involved with implementation science, the Plan, Do, Study, Act, are similar principles. So when we look at identifying issues, so we've got our team together, we've kind of got a handle on what we need, how skilled we are, and now we are going to develop that question. What is the question that needs to be asked, and identify the plan for the collection of the data? And so this chapter out here, again, as Todd mentioned, you can come in the 300 pages worth of the toolkit, but you can come in by chapter. And so part of our purpose today, we don't have time to really delve into all of them, but to give you a peek into what is in here. So this helps with that identifying issues, walks you through exercises, questions to ask yourself to help you organize your data discovery process in identifying these issues. So as you get your data organized, you've got your questions organized, then this next step of understanding the issues is really reviewing the data and then being able to communicate to others the story that the data is starting to tell. And as we mentioned before, that story, it's just the very first part of the discussion. It is starting a conversation where we need to dive deeper. And in this understanding issues section, there are some great resources in the toolkit. Let me get back out there and bring up the understanding issues, because part of this is being able to as we go through this and looked at our data. And so now what we really want to do is being able to communicate what we are finding. So it gives you some various ideas on how you might communicate what you have found to others. And it also talks about different ways that, let's see if I get down here, you know, how to organize your thoughts about what you have observed and giving you ways to kind of organize your findings. And in here, let's see, what I am looking for is the, so we can, I've been, sorry, I'm probably making you all woozy here. Here are directions that you can see in this example, how the tool itself can gives you directions on how to execute a protocol. So here, all the way from organizing your team to, as you make these observations, how to record them, questions that you might use in this analysis, making some of the inferences, guiding you through some possible questions, and clarifying questions that could be used. And so there are templates for you to use with your team. And again, just to kind of show you some of these resources that are within the in this toolkit. So data carousels, some of you may have used this concept before, and if you haven't, this explains how you might use a data carousel format. So there are these examples in here that give you instructions on how to do it, and then give you templates that you could use to do your analysis. And here the placemat protocol. Oops, rats. All right. So sorry to make you dizzy, and the tool is rich in these protocols and of how to kind of work through the this understanding the issues part when you first dive into data. So I quickly went through the data carousel. There's a placemat. We used a placement activity. If any of you are from ESD 123, when we were in Pasco working with system and school improvement, Terry Kessie and her crew used a placemat protocol that worked well as a way to capture what they were seeing throughout the analysis. So I will like to touch base with Todd. I'll start with you. Are there any protocols as you work through data that you have found in this understanding the issues, not the root cause ones, but just at this stage where they're understanding issues that you have found effective in your work?
Yeah, there's the data analysis template. I think it's on page 50 or so. It helps you kind of pose questions about what data you have and what you're seeing without judgment. So it's looking at the data and then writing down questions. You know, I noticed that. And a lot of those questions. It also has the inferences. What can the teams now infer about focusing the question and driving it in? But boy, I can't caution enough. Being the data person, I really like to pull the data and start making, you know, decisions very quickly on it. And even in this section, I like to hold off on presenting the data as long as I can. And Dana Anderson, our superintendent, is just fantastic about reminding me of that. Mike Hickman, terrific about reminding me, hold off on the data and actually ask the questions. What are you really looking for? What are you seeing? What are you sensing? And so those protocols really help kind of slow the process down rather than just having an initial reaction to something. For example, I was working with a group and we were talking about who was the support services coming from the community. And one of the things that we never even thought about was looking at who's signing in and when they're signing into the visitors log at the front desk. And thinking about how those patterns of who's visiting the school, walking in the hallways, who they're kind of visiting with, how those could actually help you understand the support services within your school system. So those kinds of protocols and being able to ask the questions and really stay without judgment are so important in this point.
Excellent. I'm looking at my time here, so I'm going to move on to root cause analysis, and Joanne, I'm going to start with you on that one as we move forward here. So let's jump into, as we have started that look into data, we are gathering what we are seeing. I really appreciate Todd's advice there to hold off on jumping to conclusions, and as we saw in our ladder of inference. And so now we're starting to use that data to clearly state the problem that we are seeing, and where we want to get is, that root cause analysis of why we think some of these, the scenario might be happening. On this screen, we have listed tools that are in the chapter. This is a popular chapter where people come to diagnose some of their data and get to the problem of practice that might be seeing to build knowledge. And so Joanne, what I know you have worked with your districts and schools with root cause analysis. What's been your experience, and what have you found particularly effective?
Typically making sure that each person at the table has the opportunity to think about the data that we've been looking at. And I like the 20 reasons protocol. I most recently used that, and as a group, always there are many reasons that the individuals in the group will come up with, but by using that protocol, it helps you narrow it down so that eventually you can get to the significance and control matrix, which helps categorize some of those reasons as you go into next steps and looking for solutions. So I guess my primary advice is to follow what Todd said and keep your groups from making decisions too early, and really give people time to think about what the data is telling them as you use these protocols to diagnose.
Great, thank you, Joanne. We had the opportunity to use as we come in here on some of these specific tools, we have used, hang on here. I'm going to go in just to show how some of these specifics, what they look like. And again, what you saw earlier, tool itself, just to speak to how you can get these examples that are already made up for you to use in your meetings, and to use them as a resource. And I will pick this significance and control matrix idea to help prioritize as you've collected a lot of ideas, and basically having your team plot the ideas on this, the idea of a matrix showing high significance and high control. So what you have found in the data is highly significant, and you perceive that your team has a high ability to influence improvement, and kind of map the ideas, what your findings are in this quadrant idea. So we over here in quadrant 4, we would have low significance and low ability to control the outcomes. And so this is just a tool that might be helpful if you have a lot of ideas and you need to prioritize what you work on for the the most impact. So again, these tools are in the toolkit for you to be able to use the Word doc and either use it as is or modify it for your needs. All right, so moving on here. So planning and taking action. Basically, after you have analyzed the data and have clear and measurable ends that you foresee that you want to move towards, and being able to then pull in best practice strategies to develop an action plan and the monitoring plan. And this is a key part of the plan, is how will you determine that you are getting the results that you want. And so with this, Todd, in your work with action planning, any advice for the audience here?
Yeah, go slow. Again, it's very, very easy to just say, we've got widget A, let's put it in there and let's do the intervention. We also spend a lot of time with the data carousel presenting the information, because sometimes we'll have parents, other kinds of folks from the community. I remember doing some dropout early warning work where we had community members in there. We used the data carousel, putting up the stuff, and then translating that questions and why we think is happening down into this action planning. But again, suspending the interventions really quickly, instead thinking outside the box and thinking about the importance of possibly even gathering more information, for example, around research, what works, Washington State Institute of Public Policy and their work, but even more importantly, the menu of options and in math, science, and math and behavior, and that of ELA from OSPI are great resources as you start putting these things to basically a movement for the group to actually address. But any kind of action, the critical thing is people having a common understanding of what the problem is and making sure that that's documented and that it's clear across all the groups.
Hey, Todd. So we did have a question from one of our audience members, Rose, and she was wondering, for a composition of data teams, what strategies can districts use to include team members who can share the perspectives of students, families, communities who are impacted by or reflected in the data that's being analyzed?
Yeah, the one that I've seen work the best is data carousels, because then I'm in control of the data that I'm putting up there, being sensitive that I'm not calling out any students or individual, crossing any lines in regards to that. So I put the data carousels together, and then having them go through the protocol either of why, which is really a good one to start with, or the 20 questions, which is sometimes pared down. I use it more for 5 questions to start with, because 20 can be kind kind of overwhelming for folks. But that works really good with a mixed group. As they're looking at the data, I mean, we've taken even the report cards off the website and put them up on big poster boards around the room and had them go around and ask those questions. What are you seeing? What are you thinking? What are you experiencing? And then from there could be this deeper kind of group that maybe is the leaders in the school teams, who then take it to the next level and start looking at the more granular, the WAMS data, they start looking at the query data, they start looking at the back end, the My School data, and starting to develop maybe the next level of WISE. And that all really is nice because when it comes together at those different layers as a system, it really helps you with your action planning. But even more importantly, it helps you get a common definition across the groups and through the groups.
Thank you, Todd. And actually, Joanne, I know that you have done work with Healthy Youth Survey as well. So to kind of expand upon what we're talking about here with families and parents and other members of the community participating, with Healthy Youth Survey, did you get into that? How did you loop in other members into this analysis?
When we were using the Healthy Youth Survey, it was always by invitation, and we invited community members who had some interest. We asked the district folks, because I am one step removed from a school district at an ESD, we asked district folks to identify stakeholders that they felt would be important to be at the table. With the Healthy Youth Survey, we also tried to look at it at a more granular level sometimes, and maintaining the anonymity that's built into it in terms of the reporting features in that tool. But it was really up to the school and or the district that I was working with who they felt were the most important stakeholders to be at the table.
Interesting. I see a question here from Kristen, and Kristen, I'll actually introduce her. Kristen Wong-Callisto is our Director of School Improvement, and so I appreciate her joining us today. And Kristen, could you expand a bit either in the chat or, and I'm not sure if she can undo her mic or if she's kind of, if you could expand a bit on the elements of the inquiry mindset. Could you clarify just a bit which ones you were thinking of?
I don't know if you can hear me.
I can. Thank you, Kristen.
Perfect. So it was actually back when you were going over that slide with all the really cool bubbles. And one of the things that I was wondering about is for example, I'm not very familiar with things like the habits of a system thinker. But I was wondering, out of all of those bubbles there, or if there's other things, what are the things that people have found the most challenging when helping lead people through inquiry mindset? Is it helping them understand the cycle of inquiry? Is it staying low on the ladder of inference? Is it maintaining an appreciative frame? So I was just wondering, through people who have actually done this work before, what could we learn from their experience?
All right, Joanne, shall we start with you? Any thoughts that you can respond to Kristen's question about, of these areas, what you found particularly challenging?
I'm going to go right back to what Todd's been saying, and that is go slow, because people too often want to solve problems. We are educators. We want to solve problems. And we need to really understand what we're looking at first.
Todd, any thoughts you would like to add to that?
Yeah, staying to the positive and staying to the proficiency model asset base, because it's so easy to go to the negative or the deficiency about what we don't have or the failures that we have in the school system. I work a lot with the small rural schools, so sometimes when you're talking about challenges in a system, you might be talking about one person. So recognizing the sensitivity of that and also the empowerment of that person to be a voice at the table, and also thinking about how professional development plays such a critical role in educating others about it's a system. It's not necessarily one person or one entity or one intervention. It's about a system working together and staying positive about that.
Very good. I think what I would add as well is that so really to answer Christian's question is that all of the elements come to play, because I was going to speak to the systems thinking point, and we have delivered information about attendance rates. We've delivered information about math performance and ninth grade on track, and when we look into an element, into that measurement, we do need to make sure that we look at the system in itself to see how those measures are related and what the appropriate solution might be. So so I encourage that system thinking, and to be able to really understand where we can get the impact that we want. And I'm actually going to tap into Kefi as our expert on our ninth grade on track. When you look at this, Kefi, what advice would you give the audience?
Well, and I think Todd's advice to go slow is great, especially thinking about all of the many things that could be behind one student's story, thinking about interpersonal relationships, and we really do have to do that deeper dive to really know what's going on.
Very good, thank you. Are there any other questions that have come in, Kefi?
We're all caught up on questions for you.
All right. All right, yep, we are coming to our close here. And so I just wanted to, let me get back to, get back to close here. That continuing, once you get your plan in place and you start acting to complete the cycle, to analyze those results and make adjustments if they did not achieve the outcomes that you desired. So continuing that cycle. Support for data analysis. We have partnered with 2 of our ESDs here. I very much appreciate Todd and Joanne joining this conversation and adding their perspectives and their thoughts, their experiences. We do partner with the ESDs, and so you can contact yours to as we build our capacity for data support. And you can also contact OSPI, our Office of System and School Improvement. Links there. It's got the green assistance button, and we are happy to assist and loop in our partners with the ESDs too. It's very important that we leverage that regional knowledge out there as well. And so I thank you for joining us today. OSPI will be delivering more data tools that WSIF, the Washington School Improvement Framework, that's a part of the report card, is right now kind of a school by school look, and that system will be enhanced as we go along. But for now, we appreciate your attendance today and our discussion on these topics, and I very much appreciate Todd and Joanne. Oh, my Joanne slide didn't get on there. Oh, sorry. Oh, Joanne, you have a bubble. Joanne's on our bubble too. And And I very much appreciate Todd and Joanne joining us and contributing to the conversation today, and keep those cards and letters coming.
So we're gonna wrap up today. Take a moment to reflect after hearing all this great information. What's one major takeaway that you have? We want to see your thinking, so I'm going to encourage all of you to type into the chat to share your thoughts. Also, if you do have any last minute questions for our presenters, even though we might not have time to answer them today, we'll make sure they get answered through email or a phone call. And while you guys are thinking about that, there is a link in the chat box right now for our GATE evaluation. So if you enjoyed our show, or if you think you can help us make it better, we would love your input on how to do that. Some of the cool stuff that's happened through this webinar and its continuous improvement cycle is all of your feedback being incorporated. So thanks so much for that. We do have some really exciting upcoming events. If you're going to go to the AWSP WASA Summer Conference, we have a great pre-conference session that you should check out. It's using data and coaching for sustained improvement, and it's an OSPI WASA collaboration, and that's for the pre-conference. So that's June 24th, and this link on the PowerPoint will take you to the registration. We also have the 2018 School Counselor Summer Institute. There is one in Spokane and there is one in Olympia. So those are coming up June 27th and 29th, and you can also register for those. A lot of great resources there for our school counseling folks. And next month, we are going to be having a webinar, which we've never done before. So if you happen to be around and want to learn more about setting up teams for success, that will be July 11th, and it'll be from 10 to 11. So we're going to try to look at teams and how they are set up to regularly interact with the data that matters most to catch kids just a little earlier. Thank you so much for joining us. And we will stick around for a few minutes just to make sure we catch everything in the chat. Back next month with more great stuff.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you to our presenters. Todd and Joanne, you are so appreciated. And everybody who is listening, please tap into your ESDs. They have really great supports available for you.